Sheesh.
Hey!
Look at the aliens.
Look at the aliens, yeah. It's good to see everybody. I hope you guys are having a great day and everybody's doing well. We've got a guest today.
Whoop, whoop.
Yes, we have a guest today. Yep. And so is there anybody out there yet?
Well, let's introduce the guest.
Well, but to who? I mean, that's like if a tree falls in the forest, does
my.
anybody hear it?
The millions of followers
Okay,
that are
that's
Yeah,
good. Okay.
exactly.
Well,
Thank you.
Deanna, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest?
Our guest this evening is Emma McLean.
Hello, everybody.
She is wonderful and we love her. She's one of our youth and she is going into her senior year at Academic Magnet. She's probably going to make a big impact on society, both in the science world and in the arts world.
The arts, wow.
I have the perfect job choice for Emma, and it is Imagineering. She should be one of the Imagineers in Disney
I
World.
did watch one of those documentaries. The only issue is I don't know if I would want to move to Florida.
Okay,
Oh, Florida.
come on, the Gators aren't that bad.
Well, specifically Orlando. Like if I moved to Florida, it would be like the Keys.
I think they let you draw at other places.
That's true.
You
Yeah,
don't have
I
to.
don't think you have to be in Disney World.
No, but you don't have to do the Florida Disney. You could do, well, don't do
Disneyland.
Disneyland. But do.
Why not?
Because California.
Oh, I know, but that was
East
my first
Coast is
experience.
Beast Coast.
Yeah.
But you could do France or China
That would
or.
be cool, or
Okay.
Japan.
Yeah,
Japan, yeah, that would be cool. I know they shut some of them down.
I don't think
Right.
forever
Once COVID gets.
Yeah.
gets
By
over.
the time I need a career, COVID will probably be old news.
Oh, the
Yeah,
old news.
hopefully.
Yeah. All you'll know about COVID is that sometime in September you'll get a notice from your doctor and you'll go in and go, and that will be it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Remember when we were dogging your dad out because he used COVID-19?
I remember that.
And we were at dinner talking about coronavirus. I almost forget that it's called the coronavirus. And he said, well, COVID-19. And we were like, whoa, Bucky. I mean, what is this COVID-19? He's like, everybody calls it COVID-19. And we were just like dogged. Nobody calls it COVID-19, you know?
Yeah, and we even called people and.
Yeah, we did.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we did. We called and he was right. It's
Everybody
annoying.
uses COVID-19 now. I guess he knows like a little bit.
Yeah,
I say Rona.
Rona. All right. Any updates on what's happening in the world or in your own personal life? What's the scoop? What's the 411?
Well.
What's the tea? That's what they say now.
The tea.
The
What's that
tea.
mean?
Spill
Oh,
the tea.
Spill the tea. Oh, spill the tea. That's clever.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah, that's great.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on in the world right. Well, a lot and a little at the same time. Like, a lot of political things, but then there's also a little bit of everything else happening. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But as far as colleges, because that's like closer to my world of life, colleges are some of them are going virtual classes, so that's kind of crazy to think about, like all the.
I hope you don't have to do that.
I
mean,
hope
you
not.
have a whole year
I
as a
have
buffer.
I have a year, so come on, let's get a vaccine sometime soon.
Right.
Hey, let me ask you this: if you did, would you stay home and do virtual, or would you like get an apartment and go for it?
Probably get an
Right.
apartment. In Hawaii. I would get an apartment in Hawaii. And
Oh, that would be so. I mean, seriously,
That's awesome.
If you gotta go virtual, it doesn't matter where you are. It's like drawing.
Might as
you
well.
don't have to do it in Disney World.
That's true.
Yeah, that would be equivalent to like moving to Clemson and being right outside the campus and then doing virtual. That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, why not just go to Hawaii?
I think so. I think we're gonna do what do they call those funds? GoFundMe.
Yeah, GoFundMe.
Hawaii vacation.
Oh man, anybody out there?
All
Anybody
right.
say hi to?
We have Linda Westfall joining
Oh,
us.
she's crazy.
What?
Oh yeah, Linda, she's crazy. I mean, she's a party animal. I mean,
Party animal.
She's probably laughing right now. Like, she's so quiet and.
Oh, I was about to say,
elegant,
I don't know if I would describe her as that.
Oh, yeah.
Debbie Rice.
Debbie, how are you? It's good to
And
see
we
you.
have 6 other people watching. We have 8 total.
8 total.
It was 7.
Ooh,
Apparently,
yeah.
Linda's upset about what you said about her.
She just ducked out.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So we're still at 7:01 here. So
Yeah.
everybody's slow rolling in. Apparently.
Yeah, well, it's good to see everybody. Glad you're here. And again, we have Emma McLean here, and
Hello, everybody.
we are really excited about having her. We're going to be talking tonight about science, and is there a problem between science and religion? You know, and particularly, is there, let's say science and Christianity, because really, well, the only religions that really have contributed from their intrinsic understanding of the cosmos would be Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Okay, and it's interesting that all of them are theistic. But we're going to find out tonight that some of the other religions, like Buddhism, Taoism, and some of the other ones, they do not have the framework to operate the scientific method because they don't believe in material the same way and observing the universe the same way. So it really is interesting that Christianity and the other two, matter of fact, the Kalam argument that we love so much from our friend and wisdom man, William Lane Craig.
Is he dead?
No.
If he's dead, I'm going into full mourning. I would like not be here tonight.
The Kalam is named after, I believe, Mr. Kalam, who was a
It's brilliant.
Muslim man. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's true.
pretty good. Okay. Anybody else out there?
We've got the DeVrieses. Woo woo! Lee Freeman, Jerry Rice,
Lee
Ann
Freeman.
McDonald's,
Hey, Lee, why are you
Simon
out there?
Kilminster.
Okay, and now Simon's out there?
Yeah,
Oh, man.
Alan.
I miss Simon.
Now they're all chiming in.
Alan, okay, they're Alan and Susan, and
Yeah.
that's awesome. Hey, Lee, I was cleaning my garage the other day. Just a side note, we'll get started here in just a second. Folks, if you don't know Lee Freeman, he single-handedly brought the Truth Project to Crosstown about 10 years ago. And we showed the Truth Project, and I think we probably showed it to over 800 people.
Wow.
Now, we showed the Truth Project, and because he's always been interested in apologetics, and he's always been interested in about the facts behind his faith. So he's but Lee, I want to let you know that I was cleaning out my garage the other day, and I found your family ancestral sword. You let me use it.
Oh.
Yeah, you let me use it for a sermon about 10 years ago.
Oh my goodness! You need to give that back.
It's in my garage. Well, it was in my office. What happened after the first flood, the church moved to my garage. And so it got moved from the church. We saved it from the flood. And so he's probably out there just as jacked up as me. I got Grandpa's, I think his grandpa was related in some way to William Wallace. Lee, just type out, see if I'm correct about that. But I do believe that they call it's Lee Braveheart Freeman. I don't know. A story like that has got to be true. Okay, so we're going to go into God's Word today. We're going to talk a little bit about science, we'll get started. So, Emma, why don't you open us up in prayer?
Okay. Dear Jesus, thank you for this day, and thank you that we are still able to meet in small ways, and we can just join together and talk about you and science and the wonderful world that you created, and just bless this conversation. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, we've been making changes to this little podcast because we always want to keep it good, and we got some listener feedback that the podcast was incredibly boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it that it was boring, and that people couldn't last for more than 15 minutes. So we love that kind of feedback, and
We didn't cry about it ever.
No. So we've made some changes. So here's one of the changes. I decided that I would wear fancy hats throughout the show.
That's groundbreaking. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if that person's out there, I mean, the hat, come on, at least good for another 15 minutes? When I begin to wax really wise, I will go ahead with this hat. Yes.
Very
kind of
nice,
like,
Downton Abbey.
Mr. Topham Hat.
Very
from
good, my
Thomas
lord.
the Choo-choo train.
We went totally different directions there.
Oh, you went down. Anybody remember Sir Topham Hat?
No, I don't
Hey,
know
if
what
you're
you're
out-
saying.
If you're out there and you know who I'm talking about from Thomas the Choo-Choo Train Engine, could you please let us know? We'd really appreciate that. Thomas the Choo-Choo Train Engine. Okay.
I mean, I know who Thomas is.
Yeah, but there was a guy, Sir Topham Hatt. Brian, did you know who Sir Topham Hatt was from Thomas the Choo-Choo Train Engine?
Sir Topham Hatt.
Sir Topham Hatt. Anybody out there help me out?
Brian just brought us smoothies.
But Brian's making some adjustments technically. So
Suzanne says she loves the hat. So
does
that's
she love-
thank you
oh,
very
well,
much.
That's a very nice thing. And Suzanne, if somebody was to think this hat was boring, let me go with this. This is called my dandy hat. Don't I look like a dandy?
Emphasis on the Dan or Donato.
Yes.
Piscazios are here.
Are they?
Yes,
Oh,
that's a Donato
An
hat.
Italian guy in the middle of the Renaissance wearing a hat like that. Couldn't you? It was like.
It's a Piccadilly, right?
Okay. No, that wasn't that. Okay.
Moving along.
That was a Star Wars reference. Okay. So, all right, let's get rid of the hat. They're killing me. They're killing me. Too creative. All right, let's go back.
They don't understand my beautiful mind.
All right. So for the adults that are still with us, it's great to have you here. So we're going to be talking a little bit about science, and I'm going to be throwing out some really boring things. Did we get that PDF all worked out for those people?
Oh, you know what? I'll get that PDF right here
Yes,
for
I
you.
bet you did. So there's a lot of talk about the issue of whether or not there's a separation between science and religion. And it all kind of started back where it actually became scholastically thought was back in 1896 when a book was written called A History of the Warfare of Science with Theology in Christendom. Yeah, this guy, Andrew Dixon White, wrote this book, and he talked about how there was this schism. Well, the interesting thing is that everybody kind of went with that there was this schism, and it became kind of cliche that everybody would say that, well, science is about facts and religion is about truth or values, as if this was some axiom. Have you heard something like that in high school or?
I definitely think, especially at Magnet, because it is very academic. Well, I mean, it's called academic magnet, so it's more academically focused. So there is definitely some thought of people say, well, I'm not a Christian, I'm a scientist, and I'm well, you can be both. You can be a Christian and a scientist.
Right.
Yeah. Let me give you some 19th century names. You tell me. Kepler, Boyle, Maxwell, Faraday, Kelvin. I mean, come on.
Kelvin.
Yeah. And we're talking 19th century. So we're not talking about some old guy pushing a rock around. Archimedes out there with a stick, We're talking about some people in the 19th century. It really kind of rose to this idea about the separation between in the early 20th century. So it's 1901 all the way to about, I would say, 1970. That there was a real movement of secularism in science, and there was no reconciling between whether or not you could be a Christian and also be a scientist who's taken seriously.
Right.
But that has all changed. Matter of fact, getting some articles here from a William Lane Craig article that a lot of societies, the European Study for the Study of Science and Theology, Science and Religion formed, the Berkeley Center for Theology and Natural Science sprung up. Now, the Berkeley Center has a chair of philosophy in science and religion. Scientists like Stephen Hawking and Paul Davies have done most of their work on the issue between the two of them. And actually, I'm seeing here that at Cambridge University and Oxford University, both of them have chairs in science and theology. So yeah, they used to be just kind of lumped under philosophy, but now they actually have chairs for it because if Anybody who says that, well, I go with science instead, they are so 19th century. I mean, it's like, get out of here with that stuff. It's like, hold on, let me just bring it back again. It's, 19th century. Yeah, it's like walking around with a hat like that. You know what I mean? That's really what it is. It's kind of like the cat's already been out of the bag, and people want to put the cat back in the bag, and you know that doesn't go well. You know that.
She knows all about putting cats in
Amy Lori
bags.
knows that.
Amy Lori knows
Yes. We can only use their first names.
That-
And I'm only kidding.
Well, she has two first names, so.
That's right, she does.
Yeah.
She's one of these people that has two first names. And that's right, I argued with her about that. Yeah,
But
well, I
it
was.
was not right?
Yeah, I felt it wasn't right. I was a Catholic. All I got was my first name, my middle name, and then my surname.
Well, a lot of times if people have two first names, they don't have a middle name. So
Does she
they're
have a
really-
middle name?
She does not
She
have a middle
doesn't.
name.
Oh,
So, so sometimes it's basically like instead of getting a middle name, they got two first names.
So really, it's like Annie, Lori.
I don't think so. No, I don't think it's hyphenated, right?
No, it's all smushed.
Is it conjoined? Is it like
It's-
Mary Ann
No,
or
it's-
Mary Ann?
It's conjoined. It's
It's
conjoined.
conjoined.
Well, sometimes it's conjoined, sometimes there's a space. It just
Now that's not. That sounds scientific. It's kind of like a waveform of light or a particle. Whoa! Okay, let's get back to.
Oh, my
Okay,
stars.
so we're going to look at. There are 6 ways that science and religion are relevant to each other. And here's some of the things. One is that religion furnishes the conceptual framework in which science can flourish. It really is interesting that it was back in the 1800s that a philosopher said that in Christianity that science is an invented cultural institution which requires a unique soil to flourish in, and that the Christian world gave it that flourishing soil. So it's interesting that the animistic religions, the ones that believe that the spirit of God is in animals and plants and stuff like that, and bring movements and all that stuff, and also the pantheistic religions, all cannot foster a scientific framework for discovery. So Christianity or the theistic religions are the only ones that can do that. Also, it is only because of the Christian world that the laws of logic, of the natural order of the external world exist, and the reliability of the cognitive faculty of the human mind. All of that comes to us from Christianity. So when people say, well, I'm only into science, well, you're only into science because Western civilization created a framework by which you could do the scientific method, the way that we reason, the way we think, the idea of antithesis. A is not B and B is not A, and these concepts of just fundamental logic flourished in the Christian worldview. So it's kind of like the atheist who calls the police because somebody stole their car. It's like, well, what's wrong with stealing somebody's car? Well, thou shalt not steal. You know, it's like, well, wait, but you're an atheist. How can you appeal to a framework that you don't believe in? So a lot of people, that's one of the things that we have. Science can also falsify and verify claims of religion. That's a lot of cool things that science can do to help us figure out things, so how they work together. What would you think were some of the ways that science can help religion out, as far as falsification or verifying?
Well, I definitely think there's like verifying, because you have like a lot of scientific arguments that verify the existence of God. I don't remember the exact name of it, but there was one that basically just states there's like thousands of like things that have to happen in order to sustain life on Earth, and just like for that to happen by chance it's just not as probable. Like it's not probable. Like it's statistically impossible for all of the things to line up to happen by chance. So I think that in a way kind of verifies that there has to be something outside of just nature.
That's right. It's called the anthropic principle. And it's the idea that there's a certain amount of things that have to be in place in order for a intelligent, wise, discerning observer of the universe to actually exist, to produce that. You're right. That's one of the incredible ways that science. You know, the Big Bang Theory. When I was a younger Christian, the Big Bang Theory kind of became big in the world of ordinary people. I guess it really is interesting that I've been around that long, but Christians rejected the idea, and it was absolutely absurd that Christians. But the Big Bang Theory is a verification of parts of the Genesis story. That there was nothing, then there was something, nihil ex nihilo. You've heard that phrase before. From nothing, nothing comes, and then all of a sudden there's everything. The fact that there is this Big Bang and a singular universe it shows us that in the disproving of the M theory or string theory, just again goes back to a biblical cosmological argument that there's one. Oh, the other thing is that it proved that it was finite. See, did you guys know that Augustine and Aquinas and some of the greatest saints, old dead dudes, that they thought the universe was eternal? Even Christians thought it was eternal. Yeah, some thought it was an oscillating universe, that it would get bigger and smaller, bigger and smaller. But it's really interesting that now we have more evidence to support the Genesis story than even Augustine and Aquinas thought. I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. Here's another one, and we were talking about it earlier, about one of the most notorious examples where science kind of corrects the church. That Galileo was holding that the Earth moves around the sun rather than vice versa, or versa versa. And what do they call that?
Well, the theory that the Earth is the center of the solar system is the geocentric, and then the theory that the sun, or the fact that we know that the sun is the center of the solar system, is the heliocentric solar system.
Yeah, and but what happened was that somebody in the church, long time ago, some church fathers said their interpretation of a Bible passage, and this one is the one, Psalm 93:1, says, "The Lord has established the earth; it shall never be moved." And as a result of saying that, they interpreted it to mean that the earth doesn't move, but the sun moves around the earth. But science proved that was false. And so the church, at first resisted that, but it was kind of like, okay, so it kind of changed a little bit of our scientific application to reading biblical text. And that's going to lead us into more conversation here, is that a lot of times, especially in the Bible Belt, we do try to add some scientific application to the reading of the text. And so...
Two things. One, I'm getting a lot of comments and texts from you guys saying that you're having trouble, especially hearing Emma.
Okay.
Brian has been working on that for like the past 5 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry, guys,
So we appreciate it, we know, and we are trying to work on that
Oh
problem
man,
now.
she just proved that aliens exist.
Yeah, if you didn't hear
If you
her,
didn't hear that,
sorry.
So,
okay, maybe the placement of her microphone.
do I need to pull this up some?
You should. How about swinging it more to the opposite side?
Your volume is shouting volume and hers is whisper volume.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
Yeah.
You're picked up on hers almost no matter what. Even if I
So
move
loud.
over, you can't hear her.
Hang with us,
So I
folks.
need to be louder.
It's-
Assertive.
It's the devil.
I need to assert dominance.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the second, am
Did I
I
do it
good?
again?
Because I have a question for him while you're working on that, Bri.
Should we switch her and Deanna, since she may talk a little bit more than Deanna? Look at Deanna, she's already.
No.
Don't be taking my mic from me, mister. I mean,
I have
Emma's
a
here for
microphone.
5 minutes and I'm already losing my mic.
Hey, she's talking about geocentric and heliocentric. I'm
I'm
good to give up my microphone.
I'm just pulling back my science 8th grade science.
Eighth grade science, way to dog the rest of us out.
Right.
Miss Hendrick, our science textbook was about the history of science and not actually science, and so it prepared
Oh.
us not at all for high school. But I mean, like,
If you're out there,
and you go to CCS, you know what I mean.
Oh boy, we're gonna get letters. Make those out. What's your home address?
the
Hideaway.
good thing is that not many people watch us because we're so
And
boring.
CCS has completely restructured their science thing since I was there, so
Right,
it's
right.
not the same. But
So my question for
Okay.
you.
Is this
because-
somebody?
No, I have a science question.
Okay.
So you talked about how predominantly in the Bible Belt it's kind of hard for us to release our grip on science. With regards to religion, why do you think that is? What bothers people so much about discoveries in science not matching up with what we originally thought with religion.
I don't think it particularly has to do with the science religion issue. I think it has more to do with our personal, what we hold to be true in our lives. I mean, I think we probably underplay it a little bit, but I think a little kid finding out that Santa Claus may not be real probably has the same internal conflict that we produce. Now, I'm not saying that God and Santa are equal, but I think if you find out that, all of a sudden your mom's, divorcing your dad, I think it's the same kind of idea that the noetic structure of the framework of my world narrative has just changed. That's why people really believe if aliens show up, regardless if they're good people or good aliens or bad aliens, that it will just freak out most people because their framework is so put in place that they cannot. It's kind of like people freaking out about the mask. It's like, I can't have that. I want to get back to normal. I mean, I don't care. I'm not here to debate the science of the mask, but even if we do prove unequivocally that the mask could make it all go away, we still would have this debate because we don't want to accept a different kind of worldview, So I think that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So I'm going to skip the other the other 5 principles because we weren't moving real fast about that. Deanna will make those points available. They're all really good. What I wanted to do is to get into the book of Genesis, particularly on science. Some of the things that we're going to share. We can have conversation about it. And we invite you to write in about your opinion on things. I'm going to try to be diplomatic. So I'm going to put an Abe Lincoln hat on. Let me lay some groundwork about the book of Genesis because we're going to talk about the beginning. Because let's be honest, that's the biggest scientific conflict that we've ever had.
Right.
Let me read some things that I've kind of jotted down. The writer of Genesis is exhibited in the compression of the book. And that's, I kind of look at it that way. He's really trying to get us to Abraham as fast as possible. He's got like 11 chapters to get us to Abraham. And what he's trying to do is explain Hebrew origins, not anthropology. He's trying to get us as quickly as possible to the Hebrew story. So that's why when you look at Genesis and you see chapter 1, we have the whole universe being made in a chapter. Then in chapter 2, we have this intricate relational story about God, Adam, and Eve, and their interaction with the world around them. And then we have, it blows up, we got this guy named Nimrod. There really was a guy named Nimrod. Yeah. See, when I was in school, we used to call people Nimrods. Did
Nimrod.
You guys ever do that? Yeah, what a Nimrod. Yeah, we used to do that all the time.
But it's appropriate, right? Because
It's
isn't
a
he a
dude.
terrible guy?
Well, no, he was kind of a warrior. He was like the first warrior. I bet you
That's what it was.
Lee Freeman knows about Nimrod because he's that kind of guy. He's a hunter guy. He can. Lee Freeman. I mean, he's the guy that he could shoot a deer, skin it, do it, fillet it. And by the time you get back to the campsite, he's got that thing reduced to beef jerky.
So if there's a zombie apocalypse, we want to team
We
up
want
with
Lee Freeman. And Lee, I will bring your sword. So we need to realize you got to look at the book. It's like there's no way that you can go through cosmology in one chapter, and then you're going to talk about Jacob's son having a relationship with this woman while he was on vacation here, and then this group over here, and it's like, what is this all about? So if you just look at the compression rate of the book, you see that once we get to like chapter 11, that the compression begins to spread out a lot. So now we're getting into the narrative that the guy really wanted to get to. So, and also we need to realize that he's writing the story not as it happens. A lot of people think that Bible's books are written while they're happening. So that this guy's like standing on a mountain someplace watching the earth being created, and then he's watching the flood happen, and then he's watching this. And it's like, no, that's not the way that it's happened. We're pretty sure that all the ideas and the facts that are in Genesis have been written post-Exodus. And you say, well, how do you know that? There's a couple things. Some of the cities that are named are not really in place until after the Exodus. They have Jewish names before they were Jewish. Okay, it's kind of like he calls the city Bethel when it's really called Luz, but we get the insertion of the word Bethel.
Luz.
Yeah, that's what it was called.
That's-
Can you imagine being from Luz?
I would be like, how
Hey,
dare you
Dave.
rename my place?
Hey man, let's go pick up some girls from Luz. You know? Okay. I mean, what kind of gal comes from Luz? Okay, I sound like a Billy Joel song there. Then there's, but here's a couple other things we see in Genesis. Is the name of the Lord. Is that whoever's writing it knows the name Yahweh or Jehovah. He uses the tetragrammaton, the 5 letters of the Lord's name. Now, we know that's not revealed until like Exodus 3, I think, or whenever Moses is on the backside of the desert that he reveals, I am that I am. So we know that, but whoever's writing Genesis is using the tetragrammaton. So we know that he must be post-Exodus. So people need to realize that this is not being written verbatim. This is story that's being communicated. It's real history, but it's being communicated in concept of story. Also, there's priestly language in Genesis. There is a lot of this idea of rest. There's a lot of priestly language in it that had not been instituted at the time of Genesis. That was almost a Davidic type language. Yeah. There's
Davidic, like King David?
yeah, Davidic.
Okay. Well, just for clarification.
I
For,
mean,
Oh, I'm sorry.
for
yeah,
people
yeah.
without top hats.
yeah,
Oh yes,
I-
okay.
Davidic is
All right,
referring to
all right.
King
Let me
David.
break it down for all the other folks. All right, for you infidels coming out of the Norman. Okay, all right. Also in Genesis, he is not writing with a 21st century modernist perspective. He's writing totally different. He's writing about relational functionality, and he's writing about divine calling. I mean, that's what he wants to talk about. He doesn't want to spend a lot of time talking about the expanse, and that he's separating the waters from above and the waters from below. He's not looking to give us a lot of scientific detail about this process.
Right.
He's also writing about covenant. He's putting things into relationship, everything in a binary relationship all the way through the land with the water, the sky with the earth, the man with the earth, the man with the woman. Everything seems to be relationally connected together. We don't normally write stories this way. When I was a computer systems analyst, I would talk about, if you ask me about what kind of computer I got or do I have a computer, I would tell you, I have an Intel i9 chip with 8 cores with about 256 megabytes of cache, and then I'd talk about all the RAM. Oh yeah, then I would talk about the PCI slots or the bus speed. Oh yeah, well how fast my RAM was running at, speed of my RAM.
like
Okay,
not the animal.
No, not the animal. But so, yeah, we're not in Genesis at this point. And then I talked to you about how fast my hard drive, how I would actually calculate or would know how fast, like if you told me you had a computer, I would say, well, how fast your hard drive? And you would respond to me about 7,200 RPMs, which was really fast at that time. And so everything was about that. But if you were to talk to this guy about a computer, he would tell you about the letters and the pictures he drew on his computer. See, for him, the computer would be talked about in terms of operation, the accounting that he did, the spreadsheets that he did. He would not care about the material framework of his computer. He would care about the functionality of his computer. Did it work? Did he have Microsoft? And did he have Microsoft Word? So the writer of Genesis is writing in relational context. But when we go back with our 21st century mind, we're looking for science. There's no way it's so. That's why we run into a lot of problems. And also, he also is talking in a language of a different people. I'm gonna skip a bunch of things. So, anybody, any thoughts about any of this?
I just think it's interesting because, like, thinking about the whole relationship, and I guess I'd never realized that it is, like, super compressed up until about chapter didn't care about science. He was like, okay, like the Earth is here. Like, who cares how it got here? It's here. We're here, and like that kind of stuff. Let's get to the relationship side of things. So I think it was just interesting that he saw everything more relationally than like with the scientific lens on.
Right. And that's really important. If I was going to tell you a story about my daughters, I wouldn't start with their, conception, their birth, or
Please don't start with our conception.
Well, I mean, all that stuff. I'm trying to have an adult conversation.
Okay,
here.
I'm sorry.
I wouldn't go through that. What I would probably want to get to as quick as how Deanna's different than Dawn, how Dawn's different than Morgan, what each one of them brings to my relational context with them. So I would go real fast through the birth order probably, and then I would get right to who's really into art, and which one of them's really into this, and which one's into music, and which ones did I enjoy certain things with. That's the way that I would write the story. I really believe that that's the way that Genesis is written.
Is relationally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we
Just
need,
to clarify really quick, we had a question about what do you mean the compression of the story? You were referring to Genesis 1:11 that talked about the compression of the story.
chapters 1 through 11.
Right, yes.
Yeah, is that, okay, like, let's take chapter 1. If we were to take Genesis and draw it out on a Gantt chart or a timeline, chapter 1 would be like as long as, if we were to say all of history equates from the beginning to now, is equivalent to the size of the crosstown building, well then we would have started at that end with Genesis and come all the way to here. There's the external wall right there, just 6 feet away from us. And then now we're talking Abraham, but all this part where it says, and he created the heavens and the earth without form and all that other stuff, would fill up all this other part. So he compresses all that into one chapter.
Right.
So we can't look at it as a timeline. See, and you say, well, who would? Well, I think there was a archbishop, I forget what his name was. Somebody can probably send it to me. Back in the early 1900s or 1800s that actually wanted to figure out what day creation occurred on. So what he did, he used the Bible as a chronological line, and he did it all just as if it was all uncompressed. And it turned out that the earth had been created like 10,000 years ago on a Thursday at about 5 o'clock. And it was really interesting. And it's like, well, but scientifically we know that doesn't line up.
Right.
But it's because the way that he approached the document, the story, is that he treated all the elements of the story as the same kind of literature. And all the literature about the same level of importance. So, that's what we mean by compression, is that there's a lot of stuff there. And we need to realize that the Bible wasn't written to speak exhaustively about nature. Where's one place where science kind of catches Jesus? Do you remember? Well, Jesus uses an illustration that is not necessarily scientifically true today, but was observationally true at his time. Anybody? Anybody got that? Hold on, but don't give the answer. Don't give the answer. This is one of the ways.
Asked us.
No, hold on. No, this is one of the ways we can keep the show from becoming boring.
Hey,
Hey, wake up! It's about this time. Wake up! Wake up! We're getting boring. Okay, wake up. Okay.
Comment, so we
okay,
know you're
comment.
still there.
Somebody tell me a story Jesus told where he uses observational science.
Stop.
I'm
Stop
sorry.
yelling.
I'm yelling.
golly.
He's really into the story.
You legit.
Dr. Chris, I need my medication.
Well, I think he's on here. Maybe he could.
I get so excited about this stuff. Where does he observationally make a statement about science, but we technically know that he's not correct, but he wasn't looking to be exhaustively correct, just relevantly correct to the people. I'm not making it subjective truth or anything like that.
Right, I think we
Anybody give
have
us
the
an
same
answer?
one.
You got
but
the answer? Anybody coming in?
Thinking, ...
It's a lot of, that could go for a long time.
Well, remember there's a 10-second delay.
Oh, okay,
So
that's
give
right.
everybody a chance.
Okay, so I'll
Write
wait on
in your-
telling the answer on that. So, let's talk about evolution, okay? And so this is going to be one that's going to be interesting for us to talk about. And normally you would have to decide what you were going to be if you were going to be a Christian. Seriously, you had to, at least when I was growing up, you had to decide if you were going to be an evolutionist or not. And you couldn't be an evolutionist and be an Orthodox Christian. So, where could evolution fit in, apply here? Because if you read the story and said, okay, this is an uncompressed story, and it's a story about a material creation that is literally scientific, how old is the earth?
According to the Bible.
According to, no, not the Bible, but according to that way of reading the Bible. That's what we need to remember to tell ourselves.
Okay.
Okay? Well,
Do you want us to
yeah.
answer?
Yeah, yeah. No, answer it. No, this is, yeah, you.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
like uncompressed if
Yeah, if it's no, if it's compressed, if we're reading it literal,
Literally?
yes.
isn't it like a couple thousand years or something?
Yeah, it'd be about 10,000 years.
10,000 years?
Yeah. So that would mean that all the fossil records that we have, dating back to about 140,000, there has been some caves in France that have been discovered with art and religious observance that have taken place, Neanderthal, Homo sapien, all these different kind of versions of us, that all of that has to be either a mistake or was planted as a lie for us to be deceived.
By who?
Well, they would say this group of people would be called, and they are Christians, okay? And you can be a Christian and be what's called a young earther. A young earther is somebody who believes that God literally created the earth in 7 24-hour days, and then that the universe, particularly that aspect of the earth, is only 10,000 years old. They would deny the fossil record and believe one of two options is that either we're doing it wrong, which there was a time when carbon dating was, but now we've got a whole new way of dating it's not, I forget what it's, how it's done differently, but it is done more reliably. Also, there is, that means the fossil record has been put there by somebody, and some people actually think that God put it there to make the earth look old. Yeah, and to make it look like there were dinosaurs.
So, but that's interesting to me, that thought process. What's the if God's going to do something, it's going to be for a reason. So, what would be the reason that He would want to make the earth look old?
I guess would be the same, an artist doing a rendition of an event that actually they didn't witness. So, and we take pleasure if somebody was to do a picture today of King Arthur or something like that, and all the richness and in the Baroque style. We would take some appreciation in that. So I think there could be some sort of aesthetic appreciation from it. I would be a little concerned that God tried to communicate truth to me, because we know that all of creation declares the glory of God, and to find out that Baroque piece was actually a fake. Yeah, I would hate to think that the whole universe was fudged. So
Yeah, my faith with that would have a hard time with that.
yeah.
Just because it's like, okay, well, if He's capable of doing that in this area, what's to say He can't do it in other areas
right.
of faith?
That other things have been faked. And so I think it really is important for us to realize that, God can use language 7 days, or the idea of days. And we do have other places in the Bible where the word for days is translated something different than days. So it's more like periods or scenes in a theatrical work. So it's, or like a revelation occurring, the rolling of a scroll and some new information is given, as opposed to a materialistic 7 24-hour day.
Could it be a way to differentiate between, because when you see the days, it's like, okay, the first day was this and the second day was this, and there was light and darkness and then there was water. So could the day be referring to a way to differentiate, okay, this is the period of time that the light came about, this is the period of time that the water came about, not like you were saying, not a literal day, but just to differentiate between the different
There is one theory that these are creating the different sectors or parts of science. You know, oceanography is created during this period of time.
That's nice.
And I'm not sure that, you know, that's interesting. That is
very
possible.
artsy-fartsy way to think
Well,
of it.
it's also kind of embedding something in the text that from
Yeah.
a 21st century mind that really. But can God do that? Yes,
Sure.
He can do that. So that's the thing. We're not saying somebody's wrong. We're just meaning that you can be at the table and hold different ideas on this and be biblically substantiated.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, if you're a 24-hour, 7-day guy and you say, well, I take everything literally, well, then what about God putting his hand in the dirt and making Adam and Eve? I mean, does God have a hand?
Right.
You know?
Or I think it's on the third day is when he creates like foliage and everything. You would have to believe that because it says that he told the earth to bring forth vegetation. So he gives the command to the earth to do so.
Yeah.
So you would have to believe that the trees and the fruit and all of the foliage of the earth was almost like a time lapse
Right.
during day
Yeah.
3, rather than what I believe as an old earther would be it's actually a long period of time where the earth actually is sprouting its own vegetation that it's commanded it to do.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and I was actually thinking about this the other day. This might be like a rabbit hole, so I'm sorry if it is, but I was thinking about this the other day. Me and my neighbor were talking about this, and it is kind of that cliche question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? But like this sparked a question, like, you know, when God created the earth, like you were saying, and had all the animals, like were they baby animals or were they created as adult animals? And like the vegetation, did he plant the seed? Not plant, but did he like form the seeds and then they grow up, or did everything come off as fully formed?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the argument, and people have different versions on that. And there is, so there's another. I think one does answer that question well. It also answers the question, where did Cain get his wife from? The same way. So there are some people that are young earthers. I would have to question them on their literal presentation, because if you just go to chapter 2 of Genesis, God seems to tell the story of the creation of Adam and Eve all over again, and this time it's in the wrong order from Genesis chapter 1. It's like, how can the writer forget that he did this in this way, and then one chapter away he blows the whole scheme? If he is a scientific materialist, then he's done a crappy job. He just contradicted his own thing. But if that's not even his concern, I mean, because let's think about it. God brings on the 6th day, okay, and days are 24 hours long, so he creates Adam and Eve on the 6th day. So he creates Adam and then says, okay, by the way, we're going to have to name all the animals while we're here. So he has to bring all the animals on the planet in front of Adam so we can name them. Okay. Then he's got to find out that Adam's not really happy. So once he gets to the last one, Adam does this kind of like, and God's like, okay, there was no suitable animal for him. So then he puts him asleep. Now, that can't be too long of a sleep, because we're cutting into our 24 hours.
Had a day done.
Yeah, and then he wakes him up, and then there's Eve standing there. That's a pretty busy day.
Yeah, that's a lot to get done in 20
Can he
minutes.
do it?
Yeah.
Of course.
Can he do it? That's exactly right. He can do
Right.
it. So if you hold to the young earth idea, that's
Right.
that's absolutely
And it's important to realize that this is an argument among brethren
yes.
in Christ. So
Now, but here's where I think that it does, where I think Christians need to let a little bit of this loose, is because when we're presenting our faith to the unbeliever.
yes, for
Because if you, I can't wait. I love it when I'm around scientific people, because I'm like, oh, can I tell you? It's okay to be an evolutionist now and believe in God. And, they're
Right.
like, what are you so excited about? I'm like, well, wasn't that the thing that kept you from God? And it turns out, no, I just don't like being accountable to anybody. But I always thought that it was like, this is the big thing. If I can
Right.
help them with their science, because that's what everybody's excuse is. But when I think about all the parties I've ever left, I never told them why I was really leaving the party. I always said, hey, I got to get home. Pepper needs to be let out, and she hasn't been let out. But I really want to get out because nerd face over there,
Nerd face.
Look at, there's nobody over there. But you know what I mean? You just want to get out of the party. So So then there's old earthers, and old earthers are people who believe that the earth can be billions of years old, and the 724-hour period is just a language device. Now those people can also be people that believe that God supernaturally in his special creation creates Adam and Eve by reaching into the dirt and forms them. Okay, so they don't have to become evolutionists if you're going to make the thing real old. Okay, so there are people who are old earthers, but they do believe in a special creation story of Adam and Eve.
Yes.
And you are within your biblical rights to believe that. Then the other group would be the old earthers who believe in a form of, we're going to use this phrase, please don't hammer us on it, because even the world of theology and systematic theology and cosmology have not figured out what this all means, but it's called theistic evolution because it's been used in a lot of different ways. And that would be that God used evolution in a way to bring about mankind. Now, here's where I tend to fall into this camp. But before is anybody left yet? Don't
all
leave
gone.
yet. They're all okay.
Don't leave. Come,
yeah.
let us reason together.
Okay. So here's the thing. On this particular one, there is a difference between evolution and Darwinism.
Yes, huge difference.
Huge difference between,
Huge.
and we're going to go to our science academic academy scholar. Tell us the difference between evolution and Darwinism.
Went into my biology days.
Yes.
But if I'm correct, I think Darwinism focused more on natural selection, is what I remember, and like how is that right?
You're right on it. Yeah.
But more on natural selection, and so like strong survival of the fittest, and like only the strong survive, and the stuff about like how not so much like it is tied to evolution, but not so much like how the species evolved to be a new creature, but how they adapted like to be stronger like within themselves.
Okay. And what is the operative force guiding this process?
Nature, right? Like
Okay,
the
even something more
environment.
philosophical.
Mother Nature.
And Father Time.
You said it earlier.
You said it.
I said earlier.
Chance.
Yes.
Yes. So if
So you nailed it.
So that the guiding, overarching, the policeman of the whole thing is this non-thing, non-entity, non-mind, non-organized thing called chance that can't even get out of its own way because it doesn't know what its own way is. That's Darwinism, okay, in a nutshell. Folks like myself, though, I have no problem with believing in a special creation where God, because you could argue with me and say, well, in the vision of Daniel, there's in the Mini Tekel Upharsin, where their hand appears and writes upon a wall.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
so
I remember
can
that
God produce a hand just enough to make Adam and Eve? Sure he can.
Sure.
Yeah. So so I have no problems with the special revelation story. I do would have to start to ask myself, where did Cain get his wife?
His wife, yeah.
And there are some genetic issues here that there's not enough time in order to produce the variance of species that we have as Homo sapiens and all that. So there is some genetic proof that it just could not have happened from a single pair that fast in this short of time.
So what would that mean as an old earther or a theistic evolutionist with Cain? How would you solve that?
Okay. What I believe in is what's called intelligent design. Intelligent design is a theory that is gaining a lot of steam because of our ability in microbiology to actually look into how genetics. See, a lot of people think genetics is the ultimate thing. Well, no. It happens even now lower than genetics, before genetics. It happens in the formation of proteins and amino acids. Amino acids are the code system of genetics. And it appears that the amino acids that make the proteins that can make the DNA, I mean, it's data. I mean, it's literally binary data, as if somebody was coding a super machine. And it has all of the sophisticated complexity of computer programming. And once you get it to that level, the odds of it occurring become by chance are astronomical. I mean, just unfathomable. Actually, the number in mathematics would be considered miraculous. Because so it is possible that God engineered creation from the beginning, from a smaller state of creation, a system of decompressing information to direct it and guide it to produce Homo sapien. And then at some point in time, God takes Homo sapien, as according to Genesis chapter 2, it says, and God took Adam and put him in the garden. And then our story begins, okay?
Just to clarify, you're saying like evolution took place before the creations, or not creation, but before Adam and Eve were, or Adam was plucked out, and so like almost like a pre-Adamic race sort of?
Yes, I would say, and that God uses genetics to produce Adam and Eve. It's not like he's like, oh, look, I got dinosaurs, don't like them. Oh, look, I got monkeys, don't like them. No, he knows he's coming up with Adam, and he's engineered Adam to come up. Now, you say, well, okay, it says that God made him. Well, let me just read you a couple texts out of Genesis. Chapter 11, it says, and God said, let the earth sprout vegetation. And then it says, and the earth brought vegetation. Then we're going to read over here, and God created all the vegetation that was upon the face of the earth. It's like, well, wait a minute, you just told me that the earth brought forth vegetation. And then you hear it say God created. It says, so God created the great sea monsters. But then it says in 24, and God said, let the earth bring forth the living creatures. So what is it? Well, it's understanding the difference between secondary and primary causes. We deal with them all the time, you know? You say the car I drove the car, but literally, there's combustion engine in there that's making things happen, and the gas is happening and all that other stuff. It's kind of like the pool table idea. I mean, you could chase the primary cause. The ball doesn't hit the white ball doesn't hit the 8 ball and knock it into the pocket. We know that there's something that forces that and chooses that to occur. And so technically, I put the 8 ball in the corner pocket. But I would be accurate in saying the cue ball put the 8 ball in the corner pocket. Both of them would be correct. And we see that declarated in here. The earth brought forth, God brought forth. The earth brought forth, God brought forth. We see God empowering the earth to bring forth life. So my idea is like, okay, well then what if that's what God did? Then we don't have to worry about the chicken or the egg. We have the earth bringing forth more complex organic forms as directed by the coding of God, the anthropic principle, the earth being exactly in the right spot in the middle of the solar system, in the middle of the Milky Way, all the gravitational forces and a certain amount of hydrogen and all this other stuff. I mean, that's got engineering written all over it, And so God puts, and if you change any one of these variables, the whole thing is a crapshoot. Okay, I mean, it's all over. It's done. If you change any of the pre-creation variables of science, you change any of them, the whole thing doesn't work.
Right.
So my thing is that he just front loads it, and he ends up with it, and then finally creation, God takes it from his earth. He reaches down into his earth, and he brings out Adam and Eve. He's got whatever the earth has brought forth that he's designed it to bring forth. Now, they are now a material creation, but he breathes into them. See, that's why what distinguishes us is not our genetic uniqueness, because we don't have a lot of genetic uniqueness. We do share a lot of commonality with the natural world. But then we get this incredible divine spark from the breath of God that separates us from all of creation. It's not our DNA. I mean, there's only like 3% DNA in us and orangutan. And you're telling me that 3% produced the moon landing and the Monets and the Wolfgangs and what's his name? Beethoven and all those other guys. Yeah. I was going to say Wolfgang Puck. Yeah, I was going to great chefs in the world. McDonald's. No, that's some magical 3%, if that's what I'm talking about. Or that God, so all this is just compressed language, and the earth brings forth some sort of in Neanderthal kind of creature, Homo sapien creature. Recent studies have shown that we all have Neanderthal DNA in us, still to this point. And there is some anthropology and some of the discoveries that show that that Neanderthal are not a lower form of Homo sapien, that they might actually be equal to Homo sapien, that there is a construction of art and literature, not literature, but writing and language and religious observation that showed the same level of sophistication of as Homo sapiens. See, we used to say they were like, there's no way I came from Neanderthal. No, it's like, no, we're saying that they all interbred together and we're together. And today we still find that DNA in us. So where did Cain get his wife from? She was on the outside of the garden. Okay? Now, there's some problems with this story, you know, and one of the biggest objection is that, so you're telling me that God creates man through a series, or a billion series of deaths. Because, you know, if we're going to evolve, there's got to be life, death, life, death, life, death, life. And I would say yes, and that sounds like wow, that's a lot of death. I didn't think death occurred until after the fall of man. That does not biblically have to hold water because
Wow.
there
We're
are a lot
treading
of us.
here, huh?
Yeah. This is right about time. You say, well, what about original sin? Yeah, okay.
And
we're gonna
was the snake Satan in the garden? Let's
well,
just
we
go
still
there.
haven't answered that question. Well, but see, because a lot of people have this idea, and it's purely, it just came from a little bit of literature. I'm not even sure if it was Thomas More. What was that piece of work that he did? Utopia? Or was that?
I don't know.
Yeah, or something like that. But this idea that before Adam fell, all of creation was perfect. That mosquitoes didn't sting, and that lions didn't eat lambs, and that asteroids didn't hit planets, and there weren't even asteroids, because that would be a destructive thing as a result of a negative impact of two celestial objects banging into each other, and that would be a no-no, because God would create a perfect world, and then the perfect world fell.
But
there is nothing in the Bible that said
Right.
God created a perfect world.
he said it was good. He
Said
didn't
it was
say
good.
it was perfect.
Yeah, it did
Is that
exactly
right?
what it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
So what you're saying is, like, just to put it in like simplest terms, Adam and Eve could have gotten mosquito bites when they were
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Because okay, when grass grows and it's green and it's lush, it is perfect. It does exactly what it was created to do. Just because something else discomforts a human being does not mean it's an imperfection. Mosquitoes may serve a function in the ecological, system, trophic cascade of the world. But we say it's an evil creature because it annoys us. I was watching a rabbit the other day running through the yard, and then I was watching a squirrel run through and then I saw a little rat, because we have sometimes some wharf rats around, and because we're near the water. And it's like, if the rat just had a nice furry little tail on it, we'd all love them. But so sometimes we will label a creature evil just because it discomforts us. And mosquitoes are a perfect example. They got a bad rap. Okay, they got a bad rap. Yeah, a lion eating a lamb. So explain to me, why did the lion have certain teeth formations if he was never supposed to use them? Okay, and then also explain to me how all the planets got, all the animals got in all the different countries. Okay?
Well, another thing is that when God is addressing Eve after the fall, he says, doesn't he say, I will increase your pain in childbirth?
Yeah.
And that to me indicates that there already was some level of pain in childbirth. And I take it a different route, dealing with miscarriages and loss that he's actually referring to, not necessarily physical laboring pains. Because let's be honest, if you got an 8-pound kid, it's going to hurt in the garden or outside the garden is what I think. So it's kind of like there's these subtle hints for me that I believe the same as you, where it's like that was considered good to him still. So just because there was physical pain, or like if you stepped on one of those stickers, or you know what I'm saying?
Well, what it meant is that Eve must have known what childbirth was. In order to increase the pain, she must have already had it. But in according to the chronological story, she hasn't given birth yet. So, but what I'm saying is that from a naturalistic standpoint, she knows what childbirth is. Because she's from a naturalistic system. She's just been given context in a divine story. And that's what Genesis is. It's a divine story to get us to Israel. And then Israel, and to get us to Abraham, because we're told that through Abraham, all the earth will be blessed, to get us to Jesus. So she knows what childbirth is.
Right.
But she now knows that she will not be spared that anguish just because she's in relationship with God now because of her compromise.
Right.
So
So like just to clarify, so you're saying like through God sparked like almost the coding of the DNA and everything for evolution, then this produced these Neanderthals or like Homo sapiens, and then set them apart and put them in the garden and then divinely breathed into them. Could
Right.
you say that that would be the image of God that we?
I would say now William Lane Craig would argue that all of them were the image of God, and that's okay. That's okay, but again, there isn't any theory here whether you're young Earth, old Earther, or old Earther evolution, theistic evolutionist. All of our theories have some
Holes.
some holes in them.
Yeah.
Okay, so are all of them? So you say, well, okay, yeah, but so all of them went to hell because they didn't know Jesus. Well, yeah, but they hadn't received the law yet, and and the transgression of Adam hadn't occurred yet. So therefore, maybe
Are they not held accountable?
maybe God does something different. We've always been
Right.
wondering who God's raising up in the Book of Revelations when He separates the goat from the sheep and enter into your rest, good and faithful servant. Well, we didn't think we were. It looks like it's a works thing, and it's like, well, who's He talking to? Well, maybe it's a
We
whole.
solved it, folks.
But-
I'm just kidding.
No, I don't want to say. When you think about Neanderthal, don't think about those guys in that commercial, Geico commercial.
Right.
No, the Geico
No,
commercial.
the guys who are like, ooh, fire,
Yeah, not those guys. All the archaeological finds show a construct very much like ours. Okay, we're out of time. I hope you guys found this dialogue interesting. Okay, so let me recapitulate. Is that the right word? Recapitulate?
I've
is
never
that-
heard
no,
of
no.
it, but
Let me say it
physicality.
over again. That any one of these versions end up with an atom, a real atom, okay?
Yes.
So none of these versions turn this into a myth. It's a real atom, and he becomes our ancestor. We will make the argument that that ancestral link is not genetic, it's genealogical, and it ends up with Christ, okay? So the idea that you can't be an evolutionist and love God is not something that you can say biblically. So this is a cool thing to take this out of, like, if you were to go to your science teacher, who I know they're pumping just evolution down at you, I mean Darwinism down at you, one, you could undercut them on some of the new finds in microbiology about Darwinism. Again, I don't have any problem with God having done this through some singular special creation. But to tell them, oh yeah, you can be a Christian and believe in that. Now you can't believe in chance, because chance is unscientific, not just because it's unbiblical.
Right.
Computers just don't code. That incredible Viking hat didn't just, that was coded. And you should see how much coding has to go on to make that stupid hat right there, let alone get the operation of the eyeball, I mean, that's underwater in an octopus and in a Homo sapien and operate the exact same way? Yeah, commonality.
Right.
Its commonality
That
is not
seems-
from ancestry. The commonality is from designer.
Seems like that would take more faith to believe in that kind of
Absolutely.
miracle than a
Yeah,
intelligent designer to me. But
it does to me too. We are out of time. And does anybody have any questions out there? Is Suzanne still there? Suzanne, we
Suzanne?
want to know if you're still there. Hey,
Hey.
Jeremy, wake her up. Wake her up. Is she over there? How about this ad, Suzanne? How about we looking? Not that Suzanne was the person who said it was boring. Not in
No.
any way. I want to infer that. We are going to get ready to take communion. Is she out there?
She hasn't said anything.
Oh.
But Kathy did say roaches don't serve any purpose. And to that, I
Yeah.
agree with
Yeah.
Kathy.
I don't see the purpose that
Yeah.
they serve.
Oh, do you guys know how much nasty, organic waste would be on this planet? It's like shrimp.
Well,
I mean, they have a purpose.
I
They
mean-
clean up the floor.
Obviously,
Their
we
purpose is just
know
not in
at
my
the end of the
house.
day that they have a purpose. We just don't appreciate them.
We don't appreciate them. So
Their purpose is just not in buildings.
I just wanted to push back on I think the wisdom of God created
Oh,
roaches. All right, Kathy? All right, Kathy? Okay, so all kidding aside, we're going to take communion. And the reason why this is such a good lesson for this is that everything that we've experienced in life, whether it's biological, sociological, physiological, whether it's and spiritual, has all led us to this moment here, that we could have God, Christ in us, that we are separate from all of creation, that we have been breathed in by the Spirit of God. But even at this table, and hopefully at your tables as well, we have been separated out even more. And it's not because we've argued whether or not we're from Neanderthal or not. You know, I didn't come from the monkeys. I don't do. It's like, no. There is something better than a genetic distinction. It is called chosen, or being the beloved. That is the highest form of human life in the universe, is being chosen of God. And it is through the work of Christ that we remember that no matter if our eyebrows grow together, or if, whoever we look like, or whatever creature, it doesn't matter. We are children of God. So, on the night he was betrayed, Jesus took bread. He broke the bread. He shared it with his disciples and said, "This is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." When supper was ended, he took the cup. Again, he gave thanks and praise, gave the cup to his disciples, and said, "This is the blood of the new and everlasting covenant between God and man through Jesus Christ." See, this is the story that God wanted to get through. He could not wait to get through Deuteronomy and Isaiah and Jonah and Amos. He could not wait to get through all the history, because it all led from Abraham to this moment. This is the blood of a new and everlasting covenant for the forgiveness of sins. Do this in remembrance of me. Emma, why don't you close us out in prayer?
Dear Jesus, thank you so much for just creating this wonderful world that we get to live in. And thank you for allowing us to be able to come together tonight and just have good discussion, and just to be able to talk about how great you are and awesome your creation is and everything that you've made. And thank you that you set us apart to create a relationship with us intentionally. And just please help us all to have a good rest of the night. And in your name, amen.
amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. I hope you guys stayed out there. I hope that if it caused you to have any questions, don't hesitate to send them to us, and we will address them and answer them.
Yes,
the
I
best
already
we
have
can.
one saved for the start of next week.
Oh, that would be great. We may revisit this one a little bit.
There might be a part 2 on this one.
On this one, yeah.
Part 2.
Okay.
It's a lot to chew.
Yes, it is. Thanks very much, and have a great evening. Emma, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
We were enriched by your input.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry that Suzanne did